single body part of yours is your property, okay? Because it's a thing. Because it's there. Your life isn't actually a thing, and your life is what actually does the owning, right? A thing can't own another thing, okay? However, a life, a spirit, entity, whatever you want to call it, your will can own other things, okay? And your will is not actually a physical manifestation. It is kind of in your brain, okay? Your essence and your life exist in your brain, your consciousness, right? That property rights start with your body. And your body is property, 100% property. It's a thing that you own and use for your purposes.
There are those who believe that the mind cannot exist independently of the activities of the brain, that the mind and the brain are one, that the mind and the body are one. There are also those who believe that the mind and the body are separable or separate. For example, those who believe that there is a soul which inhabits the body at birth, or perhaps at baptism, and which leaves the body when the body dies. Your position on the separability of mind and body has a logical implication for your position on the concept of self-ownership. The reverse is also true. Your position on the validity of the concept self-ownership implies your agreement with or disagreement with an underlying assumption concerning the separability or non-separability of mind and body. Political philosophy draws a distinction between liberty and property. And I'll submit that the distinction is best drawn as follows. Liberty is control over oneself. Property is control over something other than oneself. For the concept of self-ownership to have any logical meaning, it has to be assumed that you are made up of not one piece but two. You're made up of the self and something else that owns the self. That part, that mysterious owner, is not the body, and it's not any part of the body. Nobody considers a dead man's brain to be the owner of his body any more than they consider his liver to be the owner of his body. In practice, those who speak of self-ownership consciously or subconsciously assume that the owner is the mind, that the mind owns the body. The mind or the soul or the spirit owns the body, or that which occurs in the material realm. Therefore, if one considers the concept self-ownership to be a valid concept, if one considers one to own oneself, it's necessarily the case that, consciously or subconsciously, one is drawing a dichotomy between the mind and the body. To the person who believes that the mind and the body are separable, liberty becomes nothing more than a special case, or a synonym for property, a special kind of property, property in oneself. Alternatively, if liberty is not a kind of property, then it means that one's mind controls one's mind, controls one's mind, etc., recursively ad infinitum. A ridiculous and recursive meaning of the word liberty. Now consider the position of the person who does not draw a dichotomy between mind and body, between spirit and body, between soul and body. For such people, liberty refers to control of one's body, whereas property refers to control of things other than one's body. To the person who regards mind and body as inseparable, it is self-ownership, not liberty, that has the ridiculous and infinitely recursive meaning that the self, owns the self, etc. Who then finds it necessary to use this concept of self-ownership in the defense of freedom? Who is it that uses self-ownership as the reason to oppose laws against abortion, laws against the use of drugs, laws requiring organ donation? The answer is those who consciously or subconsciously assume that the mind, the soul, and the spiritual are separate from the brain, the body, and the material. Self-ownership is a concept compatible not with rational philosophy, but with any number of irrational ones. It serves not those who believe freedom is the logical consequence of a commitment to reality and reason, and a necessary condition for the prevalence of reality and reason, but those who want to treat freedom as somehow axiomatically virtuous, who want to render all metaphysical, epistemological, and ethical arguments unnecessary, redundant, or interchangeable, who want to base freedom upon any number of different and conflicting metaphysical, epistemological, or ethical beliefs, who want to believe that freedom can be the result of numerous different philosophies, whether rational or irrational, whether committed to reality, reason, and self, or whether committed to God, obedience, and etc. In practice, most succinctly, self-ownership is a concept used by conservatives and libertarians who are afraid of being divisive on the issues that are most fundamentally at the base of freedom and the justification of freedom: metaphysical beliefs, epistemological beliefs, and ethical beliefs. They want to sidetrack all of those aspects of philosophy, all of the underpinning of political philosophy. They want to shunt to the side and instead replace it with these floating abstractions like self-ownership, a concept actually borrowed not even from politics but from law, something even subsequent to political philosophy. All in an effort not to have to deal with, or to try to deny, or to try and pretend that reality, reason, and ethics have no important role, are not indispensable in justifying freedom. I'll just conclude by saying that in the rational person's lexicon, the term self-ownership really shouldn't exist, and in its place should be a single word: liberty.
And therefore, if I die, you'd figure my corpse, my body, would go to whoever I leave my body to. If they wanted to do with it as they pleased and rape me in my butthole or something, it's their body. I honestly couldn't care less